What is the best relic in Remnant 2? After 3 DLCs and loads of patches, we have a lot of different options to choose from. Almost every relic behaves differently than it did when this game first launched, so which one should you really be using at this point? Honestly, all of them have some build style they improve, so on top of ranking every relic, I'll try to give some ideas for how each should be used optimally. Let's hop in and find out which heart is truly the strongest. The Unsullied Heart stands as one of the most elegant looking relics we have access to. This heals 100% of current health basically as soon as you take it. Now this might sound pretty good at first, but the specific description of current health makes it a really bad pick. You will be healed for however much health you have left. So at 50% of your HP and over, this is always going to be a full heal. However, with only 20% of your health, it can take up to 3 relics to gain a full heal. Even when taking the triage trait to boost healing, it is incredibly inconsistent. The best this is ever going to perform is when you have most of your health, which is not when you really need to be taking a relic. F tier. The Latent Heart is one of the newest additions to the game coming from the 3rd DLC. It's very unique, being more flat than most options, and obviously being very futuristic tech-inspired. Once taken, you will be nearly immune for 5 seconds. It grants a very short window where 95% of incoming damage is reduced. So really nice for a oh crap I can't dodge this attack kind of deal. After those 5 seconds run out, you take a small amount of that damage prevented for 10 seconds. This makes it really hard to use because even testing the thing, it's impossible to tell how effective it actually is. You do take practically no damage at all for 5 seconds, and the absorbed amount after doesn't seem to hurt you really at all, unless it would be a super strong attack, maybe from, say, Venom. But then you also have 2 new problems, which would be no healing from your relic whatsoever, and after you use all 10 of your relics for the defense, now you're out of your trump card. While surviving a really tough attack is useful, other options exist, like the Shielding Heart, Crystal Heart, Void Heart, and Resonating Heart, making Latent never really worth taking. Even with all the other healing options we have available in Remnant 2, this still feels worse than just running a life regen or some hefty DR. F tier. The Decayed Heart is an old and dying wooden relic. On use, you gain nothing initially, but upon taking damage, you're healed. This effect lasts 30 seconds and works 3 total times per relic taken. With high DR and triage, you will stay close to full health if you spam the relic. Forcing yourself to take damage in order to heal is not a great idea in the first place, but again, options like Crystal, Resonating, and even different amulet and ring combinations do this much better. 3 hits for 10 relics gives you about 30 total times you can take damage and heal, so that's actually a decent amount if you're trying to dodge most of the time. Still, there's not a lot of reliability in this because it's only effective when you greatly boost healing and defense, which can really bog down your traits quite a lot. F tier. The Siphon Heart is what happens when someone straps an engine or rocket to their heart. On use, it grants 10% lifesteal for 15 seconds. The lifesteal provided is actually really strong. You can fire guns or use skills in melee for easy heals back. And now it lasts long enough to be a viable option technically. The problem is we have a direct upgrade being the Profane Heart. And in general, you can get much more out of other relics if you just equip a bit of lifesteal on other parts of your build. Lifesteal on its own is very useful, but requiring a relic taken for you to then deal damage wastes a lot of time. Might as well just be taking a relic that heals at that point. Melee builds specifically could make great use out of this, but even then you're trying to make it work for the sake of making it work. F tier. The Broken Heart is a copy of the Tranquil Heart, except it's a much more dark version due to what happens to Nimue when you get it. Right off the bat, you have an extra 50% use speed, which means it's taken very quickly, almost instantly in fact. Then, just by equipping it, it passively removes your health down to 50%. You can also take it to reach 50% instantly for a heal or to lose health. This allows you to gain benefit from items which require you to be at half health. You have the amulet Death's Embrace granting more damage and haste at half health. Plenty of rings give you a boost to defense at low health, and you can even become immortal by pairing enough of them together. Problem is, there's one item in the game that makes the Broken Heart a bit redundant, and that would be the Restriction Cord Ring. This locks your health at 50% permanently, also granting a very high amount of defense. So if you're already going to be playing at half health, this item is way too strong not to use. And once it's equipped, you can use any other relic in the game to great effect, while still staying at half health. It is good if you're missing items, but especially once you reach the end game build crafting, Broken Heart is not even worth thinking about. D tier. The reprocessed heart is a very bright blue relic based around mod regen. Once taken, it converts your health to gray health, granting 40 mod power per second for 25 seconds. This is an excellent amount of duration for sure, letting you gain the benefit for a good chunk of any engagement. And converting your health allows you to build into gray health easily, although there are easier ways to do so. Problem is, the main benefit here is mod power, and man, this is such a low amount given. When using mods that have low mod requirement, you still can't spam them hardly at all just from this. Also consider that some of the better Archon builds used correctly have insane mod regeneration to begin with. You rarely ever need more, and if you do, rings are much more efficient. Now the cool thing is with something like the encrypted ring, you don't need to worry about the health conversion. Spamming your mods will actually heal up any health turned into gray, but you're still going to be using a relic constantly for below subpar mod generation. The idea here is great, but you always have better options, and most gray health builds are not centered heavily around mods to begin with. D tier. The basic Dragon Heart was your only option in Remnant from the Ashes and the relic you start Remnant 2 with. It is an instant heal of 70 health, so most of the time you're gonna fully heal unless your HP is really low, and that's all we can really say about it. This is the complete blank slate item. You have a decent, not even good, but decent heal taken at an average speed. Most options are gonna be better than this, and once you reach endgame content, you will never equip it again, but definitely good enough early on. If you like reliability, there is something to say here because the heal doesn't take time to regen. It has no gimmick tied to it, and you can always count on it. But yeah, nobody uses this later on. Heck, I haven't used it in over 1,000 some hours of game time now. D tier. Diverting Heart is one of the more interesting looking relics we have in the game. Being bought from Cass, there's no real clue as to why it looks the way it does, but someone clearly mechanized the item, that's for sure. This provides no healing whatsoever, but instead increases the cooldown of your skills for 15 seconds. This allows you to get your skills much faster and can be especially effective for invader builds if you're wanting Wormhole to be active more often. This option is useful, but mostly for speedrun kills. People who are not going to be taking damage anyway and want the boss to die instantly with very high burst damage. And since there's other ways of getting healing in this game, there's no real negative attached here. The only reason I don't use it is I do have a lot of better options. If I do need more healing, I like to have it, and if I don't need healing, I might want shield instead. And there's never a time where this is better than just making max skill cooldown builds with Invoker. More of a niche item used by a specific group of people, so good, but not that versatile. C tier. Lifeless Heart is a part of the Ravager and probably the most depressing item in the game for me. This is one of those times where the devs decided to change an already just okay item and made it worse, unfortunately. Because this granted a small amount of healing before. Now it does not grant any healing at all, but has 50% extra use speed and double relic capacity, which means you have a max of 20 hearts instead of the normal 10. The main issue is that there's really only a few select builds that need this to be their optimal choice. Minion builds that have lifesteal or HP regen built into them make use of this because taking a relic keeps minions alive longer. An engineer regains energy in their turrets when you take a relic. This is nice to have here because you can make use of relic perks far more often and easily due to the fast use speed. For instance, gunslinger users are granted a 15% increase in range damage every time they take a relic. Well, now you can spam 20 of your relics to get that boost for an entire fight. There really was no good reason to take away this item's small amount of healing it had. Now it's even less versatile when it was already rare to see before, but in the right hands it is a powerful tool. Especially since boss rush exists, you might want more relics for reviving teammates. C tier. Blooming Heart is a gorgeous flower blossoming in the sun. This is one of the more unique looking items we have, and on use it will heal at a decent speed for 5 seconds. On top of that, 3 different green orbs are spit out from you, which can be picked up for an additional amount of healing, which lets you gain 4 spurts of healing in total, potentially, or lets you heal yourself and teammates at the same time. Because yeah, other players can pick up the healing orbs for themselves. You always get more team healing from other options, you always have the downside of needing to go find the orbs for that healing, and overall it's a pretty inconsistent heal. But on the flip side, it's got a fun mechanic, does heal better than many options, and when used by all 3 players, turns the battlefield into a flower bed of health. The one aspect really holding this back is you can't spam orbs around the map. Only 3 can be spit out at a time. Taking another relic makes the previous ones go away. That right there really kills how creative or at least free you can be with this item. Though there's no doubt in my mind that this is a good heal regardless. C tier. Enlarged Heart is a gross looking relic containing some pretty nasty tumors and discoloration. Once equipped, your relic capacity is halved, leaving you with 5 relics in total instead of 10. But on use, it is down to instantly and always heals your max amount of HP, granting you an insanely reliable heal when you need it, but you can't use it all that often. If you find the game is starting to be much easier, you're dodging a lot better, and overall you only need 2 or 3 relics per dungeon or boss anyway, then why not make the relic as reliable as possible for those rare occasions you mess up? Problem is, every class has that relic passive. Archon gets more mod energy on relic use, Warden gets shield on relic use, and Alchemist actually gives a passive to the entire team on relic use. The Enlarged Heart does not work very well if you like to gain those benefits often. And taking this into any amount of team play is just silly. Co-op is incredibly unpredictable, meaning someone will always go down at some point, and you don't have very many chances to revive them with this. For good players like say Bolt Jameson who are genuinely skilled at the game's mechanics, this is one of the better options. But for the general public and myself who loves those relic perks, this grotesque monstrosity will never be used. C tier. The Pulsing Heart is exactly as it sounds. Once taken, your character will pulse every few seconds, healing 20 HP for yourself and anyone in the area. This lasts 15 seconds and can be used to great effect on minion-based builds. For those, you already need to keep them alive with relics. This just helps to do so even better. And if you have a team of 3 people running it, there are loads more chances to regain your HP for all of you. Especially if you all stick together, it's quite reliable. My only issue with it is how little healing each pulse does. In total, you're getting around 100 health, which is enough to survive a few hits here and there, but at low HP, you do risk death for a significant period of time. And really, that's the problem. It's such a nice option you will probably never use, mainly because Resonating Heart exists. And in the grand scheme of things, Blooming Heart, Pulsing Heart, and Resonating Heart all fall into a similar category. Each is going to be amazing for minion play, team play, and solo healing. The more fun option is going to be Blooming, the best option is Resonating, and the in-between is Pulsing. I've used it only a handful of times for some fun, but whenever I optimize a build, this never makes the cut. If you manage to get this early on for a new character though, heck, it's probably the best option for that time. C tier. Ripened Heart is an option I don't think I've ever seen anybody use. This is a Thane seed you get by planting the Thane fruit tree in Ward 13. It heals a small amount instantly and then a good chunk more over the next 5 seconds. As far as general healing goes, this might be the best option. If you're not going to specifically be building into things like lifesteal, regen, or healing effectiveness, this doesn't need any of that to work anyway. Especially now that Resonating Heart is not very good anymore without some decent healing effectiveness, this is the next best option. Use it after a hit, before a hit, either way works just fine. Also gets a few style points, because I really like the look of it. B tier. Gossamer Heart, if I'm even saying that right, is an interesting option. This provides no healing at all, and instead increases your base evade window by 1. Take it, and that is now doubled to 2 for 15 seconds. So yeah, you're already wondering how effective really is this relic. The truth is, nobody has a clue. I do actually kind of like it, and my extensive testing with it leads to some pretty mixed results. In theory, it makes dodging much easier. An entire window frame is much more than you think. Pair this with Invader's trait, the Ring of Diversion, and other factors such as Engineer's Heavy Carry dodge. Well, now you should have a hard time messing up dodges, that's for sure. I think an option like this is really cool, and again, healing isn't all that hard to get from other sources too. So if you already have Generating Band and decent shield buildup, why not use this to make boss fights all that easier? Especially since heavier dodges get worse and worse the more encumbrance you have, this could help heavy armor users nail those timings more often. Ideally, I like to think this ranking spot isn't just me coping because I want it to be good. Try it for yourself and see if it helps. You could possibly get to a point where your evade window is so high, roll spam makes you nearly invincible. Never know until you try it. B tier. The Tormented Heart is an incredibly neat looking relic that will blow your mind. The item gains an innate 25% use speed bonus, letting you use it more quickly and in between enemy attacks much more often. It will deal a good amount of explosive damage on use and lifesteal for 20% of that damage dealt. Now, you will basically be forced to run this with the amplitude trait, as that makes hitting targets a million times easier. You know I did the math on that one. And I found the lifesteal to be a really good full heal every single time no matter what. This does require a target to be in the vicinity infinity, of course, but if so, it's always going to be a very reliable heal close up. The obvious problem here is you only have a limited amount of 10 relics, so using it as an actual damage source requires some creativity, mainly if you use the reboot skill from Invader, as it can grant you your relics back when used correctly. For general use, it is hard to take, however it does have a secret effect that makes it quite powerful, and that would be a massive amount of stagger. So much in fact that bosses like the Red Prince can't attack you. He's staggered so often that he will skip attacking you and move on out of his fire cone phase. An incredibly creative option that works well with Summoner's explosive bonus and skill cooldown when running Invader. Just tough to take all the time because you really want to be building around it if possible. B tier. The Bloodless Heart is a relic with all its blood sucked out, being dry as a bone, because this one also provides no healing whatsoever. Instead, it gains a massive 50% extra use speed and grants a shield that lasts 3 total seconds. What the heck? That's terrible. Except, this is a gimmick item. Correctly used, mainly with the Emergency Switch Amulet, Restriction Cord Ring, and Conservation Seal Ring, you become completely unkillable for the entire time you're in the game. No attack in the game can kill you, and that does include traps from different dungeons. This is because that setup grants you unlimited relics, and while this relic is active, you're immune to everything. You can go through tricky dungeons not worrying about the mechanics. You can take down bosses just spamming the relic button. You can quite literally cheese the entire game. Of course, this does break down completely if bosses get empathy, as that will heal them. But overall, the idea is awesome. You have an item that's going to save you from one single attack that you suck at, or used in this specific build, nothing can harm you as the Engineer Turret and Invoker skills do everything for you. In terms of versatility, this is pretty darn garbage, but I think its specific use gives it a place at the table you might want to consider from time to time. B tier. The Ruined Heart comes from the Labyrinth, and it's not all that hard to tell. This option will grant you a decent amount of life regen for 10 seconds, while also generating 500 mod power. This gets tricky because again, you only have 10 relics in total, but you need to use this a lot for the effect, and most good mod builds don't need more mod power. That being said, I personally used this heart a lot when I was in my first 100 hours of the game. Its heal is strong enough to get you back to full almost every time, definitely enough if you have triage as one of your traits, and the mod power is going to be well worth it for many different situations. I found that when swapping between just mods, trying not to use my guns at all from the regular fire modes, this worked perfectly. The mod attached to Alpha, Omega, and then Helix together can be rapidly spammed for 10 seconds, granting really large damage numbers in the meantime. Towards endgame, you won't have much need for this anymore, but with Archon and this together, you really can double your DPS on mod builds. 10 seconds is not long at all, which is the downside, so make sure you're ready to get that damage out. I just love that it serves two purposes regardless. Decent mod power, decent healing, and especially if you haven't unlocked Archon yet, Ruined Heart could be an excellent option in the meantime for mod builds. B tier. I honestly think the Constrained Heart is one of the most underrated relics in all of Remnant 2. On use, this regenerates 20 health per second for 5 seconds, so 100 health regen, plus it grants 2 stacks of Bulwark for that few seconds. This is an excellent heal when used with the Triage trait that will heal through damage taken as long as it's not too much, and 2 stacks of Bulwark is crazy strong. That's enough defense to prevent your death actually. Better yet, there's a secret synergy that makes this way better than you ever thought. Equip the Challenger class, and anytime you use this relic near an enemy, you're granted 4 stacks of Bulwark and 10% increased damage. The relic perk on Challenger works perfectly with this item, making you have much higher DR for a time. Used efficiently on a melee build or a shotgun build, you now have much higher survivability. There are going to be better options a lot of times, but for early game when you don't have a lot of relics, this is S tier. And for late game when you have them all, it's at least a consideration when Challenger is in play. Remember, Bulwark is quite strong, granting a very large boost in defense. Work in Medic's Prime perk, and now you can use them pretty flippantly for a semi-immortal tank. A tier. Crystal Heart is quite literally a crystal with some wires attached. This is the best item in Remnant 2 for pure tank potential. It regenerates the most health possible on use for 10 seconds, making it incredibly reliable as a heal. You also gain 25% damage reduction on use for 10 seconds, making you nearly immortal. On a tank setup, you can become completely unkillable for sure. Use Medic to regen relics and you can infinitely eat hits while letting your team take out the boss or you yourself slowly whittle them down. It's unbelievably strong in the healing department, department, needing no other buffs to make it one of the strongest options out there. Only one problem though. Every use of this will decrease your movement speed by 50% for that 10-second duration. This completely kills this relic as an option in dungeons, as you will take forever to get through them. In boss fights, not really a problem because you don't need to move much then. But while the positives do make you want to always take this hunk of crystal, the negatives make you want to never use it. For when you do want to use it, there's no better option. However, its versatility is incredibly low, so many, including myself, choose Resonating Heart instead for health-based tank builds. One of the best items in the game for what it does, but you won't want to use it unless you have to, that's for sure. A tier. The Quilted Heart is easy to overlook, but be sure to check it again. This grants you infinite stamina for 20 seconds. During this time, any dodge heals you for a very small amount. While that doesn't sound super broken or anything, it's game-changing for a variety of builds. Specifically, melee builds get a lot out of this. The Bisected Ring is king for melee, but that also makes you take more damage. Well, now you can take that off, replace it with a damage ring instead, and still have infinite stamina. Unfortunately, this is another heal that's incredibly weak. You will want triage just so it will do anything really. Using something like Spectral Blade though, where you're backstepping or using the back dodge to attack, this grants health over and over and over the entire time you're fighting, leading to much larger healing than the original 15 read in the description. You can also have a lot of fun here with the Misty Step build, where the Misty Step dodges take away your health but also grant it back at the same time, negating that downside altogether. Even when not playing into these two styles of combat, infinite stamina is a whole new ball game. Some bosses are actually entirely designed around running your stamina dry, so you can't dodge the next attack thrown at you. Quilted Heart makes those encounters a joke and lets you stay 100% focused on combat rather than needing to stop every few seconds for a heal. A tier. The Paper Heart has had the biggest glow up ever from my previous relic list, as I think it was in F tier before if I'm not mistaken. This used to require that you get kills to get your health back. Now, however, you just need to deal damage. On use, you gain a 100% full heal. You will also gain 10 stacks of what is called Paper Health. If you do not deal any damage for 10 seconds, your entire health bar will be turned into gray health. But dealing damage will take away stacks of that Paper Health. The less stacks you have, the less health is converted. So basically, you're going to get a full heal, and then if you deal enough damage in 10 seconds, all that healing stays, which allows you to use it two different ways. First off, you can use it to fully heal. In boss fights, you will always deal enough damage to keep that full heal, though in dungeons, it's not as easy to do so. The problem here is that if you're forced to use too many relics in a row, the paper stacks keep adding up, until you literally cannot get rid of them in time for the gray health to activate. I don't like this option here because you have way too many amazing relics for the normal heal. I do, however, like this option for gray health builds. This is where you want your health to be fully gray so that different rings and amulets get activated. Up until the third DLC, this style of build crafting was completely dead, just not viable at all. You could try it, but you were always going to be one hit. Now with Warden, however, you can make very powerful gray health builds completely protected by shield, and the most effective item in the game to gain gray health is easily the Paper Heart. So for versatility, not nearly as good of an option as others, but for builds that need it, there's no better option, and those builds are very strong now, thankfully. A tier. The Salvaged Heart is an option that still never seems to disappoint me. This gets a 25% relic use speed and revolves again around gray health. You always heal 30 health, but also heal 300% of your gray health up to full, which means that if you have any good chunk of gray health from being hit, you're gonna get a full heal instantly. Void Heart is still gonna be much stronger in terms of versatility, but the more I play Remnant 2, and the more I got better at learning bosses' attacks, the more I noticed how little time you have to heal sometimes. The extra 25% use speed is enough to get your relic perk, heal you up to full, and do this just before a boss attacks. Now do be aware that this relic to be effective requires something from the user. You will always want triage, which I rarely run without anyway, and you will likely want something to help gray health. Best option by far is to select the Dark Pact trait. It's the way to go because you get a full heal every time you take the relic. Just be sure to stay completely away from health regen. That mechanic greatly reduces how effective gray health healing can be with the Salvaged Heart, as it will slowly take away the stuff. And while you may not see this heart all that often, I do think it's incredibly underrated. You have a very solid heal all the time, that is made perfect by one trait. No, you're not going to use it on tank builds, healer builds, shield builds, or even a few others, but on light to medium range builds, this is excellent, especially if you're going to be using the Atonement Fold Bleed Ring. Gaining your relic class perk with this is just too easy and fluid. S tier. The Resonating Heart is your best tank relic in Remnant 2. This revolves entirely around healing effectiveness and health amount. Basically what this does is heal you over 5 seconds. After that 5 seconds runs out, any extra health you had above 50% that was not healed is doubled for 20 seconds. This makes it a bit confusing, but it's really simple at the same time. You want to use this when you're at full health. Don't take any damage for those 5 seconds, but then any damage you take after is instantly healed over 20 seconds, making it easily the longest heal possible and also the most powerful if used correctly. While this used to be just straight up broken for healing, it was fixed to be much less effective. So now you need to build into healing effectiveness at least a little bit or it won't work hardly at all. Do so, however, and it's a remarkably strong heal that lasts an absurd amount of time. You'll want to use this with Medic as prime most of the time and at least some extra health. It works really well with the red Dose Sigil amulet, letting you Misty Step, have infinite relics, tank like no other, and heal your teammates if they need it. You can't use it on just any build anymore and have it be nearly as strong, but it will still be a good heal on most builds as well, especially effective in Havoc form or Engineer Heavy Carry form, as you can use it and then go into a state that you can't use relics, but you still have that healing for at least 20 seconds. Don't become obsessively reliant on this item, but when the time comes for Root Doctor to show his face, slap this hunk of healing on and face tank bosses without batting an eye. S tier. The Void Heart is the most powerful heal in the game that doesn't build into anything. When taken, it will reduce all incoming damage by 50% for 4 seconds. Once that 4 seconds is up, you gain 100% of your missing health back, meaning you will always get a full heal no matter what, and even at low amounts of health, it's very hard for enemies or bosses to kill you due to the extra defense. Since I love versatility above all else, this item wins big. You can use this to heal in general, of course, but also it makes for a very reliable oh crap item. For any specific boss move coming up you know you struggle with, take this and now you will not die. You might take damage, but it will heal you up, and you definitely won't die if at full health. For just a simple full heal, I would never use anything else in the entire game. Extremely reliable and forgiving since 4 seconds is much longer than it sounds in a boss fight. Outside a boss rush, you can spam these as often as you like to gain your relic buffs, become nearly unkillable, and stomp down everything in your path. I love this guy and think it's incredibly powerful when you use correctly. S tier. The Shielded Heart makes use of one of my favorite mechanics in Remnant 2. Shield. This will grant you a shield equal to 100% of your max health for 20 seconds. This is going to take the damage instead of your health, and the more health you have, the more shield will be given. While that is very simple, it is also so ridiculously game-changing. Obviously, you're going to need to gain some healing from other sources, which is the big downside. However, the Generating Band Ring is an instant solution if need be, and shield is just crazy strong. You can use this to tank almost any attack in the game on a light to no armor build. It's always going to give you 2 or 3 freebies per fight. Maybe you could use it before reviving someone just in case you get hit during the animation. Use it in similar ways to the Void Heart for a free save, but this one lasts 20 seconds instead of just 4. Use it to activate shield items, although we have more reliable options for that now for sure. Use it before entering Heavy Carry on Engineer or Havoc form on Archon for a massive boost in defense while being more offensive. This item is insanely strong for its versatility alone. In the past, I've used it very often in co-op if our connection is bad and latency is a big issue. Darn it, all those AoE timings are off, but at least I'm not dead because shield is awesome. Go into the regrowth and triage traits in a life regen fragment. Now you have excellent HP regen and can heal up under the safety of shield. This is a very fun way to create builds that can combine very high damage with reliable defense. S tier. The Profane Heart takes the power of our root enemies and gives it back to you. This gives you 3% lifesteal all the time. No need to take your relic at all, it's just there, which is a low amount, yes, but it's always active and can stack on top of other lifesteal amounts to great effect. You can also use your relic to increase all lifesteal by 50%. Most people don't even use their relic at all when using this, leaving 10 full relics for reviving teammates or gaining relic class perks. But if you do want to take it, the effect can greatly benefit you, and especially now that Boss Rush has been added, a relic actively working for you even when you don't have to take it is just automatically one of the best options. How could it not be? When this relic came out, it was so devastating that there wasn't a single build without it. Now with the addition of Warden, things are a bit different, but Profane Heart is as effective as ever. So while this item is crazy strong, there are a few things you should know for deciding maybe not to take it. First off, this item is really good, mainly because you can also equip the Siphoner and Leech traits. One grants more lifesteal and the other grants lifesteal effectiveness. effectiveness. Without the leech-specific trait, lifesteal is far less effective, and sadly that item is one of the few locked behind co-op. And while you can get people to help you out, some are never going to get that trait, instantly making the Profane Heart far less effective. Also consider that this item requires 2 entire trait cards, leaving you with only about 3 free trait cards to work with after slotting things like health, stamina, and all that. The main time you're going to be using Profane Heart is if you have constant damage. So things like Havoc forms, Sandstorm mod builds, melee with challenger setups, anytime you're dealing with loads of damage over and over for an extended period of time, the Profane Heart can't be beat. Never even think about taking a relic and you will heal every bit of damage taken. A crazy good option that can be hard not to pick, honestly. S tier. And I bet you're not surprised to find the good old Tranquil Heart at the top of this list. This is the beautiful heart of Nimue that grants a passive 2 HP regen per second without ever taking it. Just passive HP regen from having it equipped. Take the relic and all healing effectiveness is doubled for 15 seconds. Now, like I said, Profane Heart swept the game when it came out. So why is Tranquil leading the pack all of a sudden after just 1 DLC? Mainly due to the Warden class and several new items such as the Insulator Mutator. Profane Heart requires constant damage or very high burst damage to be effective. Tranquil Heart requires no damage at all, meaning you can heal out of fights much better and can easily heal up under shield. And after the fragment system got modified, we now have a fragment for life regen, meaning you can always have 3 HP regen no matter what. Throw in the regrowth and triage traits and there's never any reason to take another relic again. You have incredibly fast HP regen that requires no relics to be used whatsoever. And status builds have a ring called the Black Spinal Ring that grants even more health back as long as you're dealing status damage. Or again, throw on Generating Band if you're using shield. It is so ridiculously easy to heal from 0 to full in under 5 seconds now with the Tranquil Heart. Yeah, it does take up a few things on your build, but sacrificing a little damage for instant healing is by far worth it. Empathy is completely countered using this item, and for boss rush you never need to worry about running out of your relics at all. An entire main mechanic of this game is completely gone for you. With all the additions to Remnant 2 after the 3rd DLC, Tranquil is far too easy to slot as a best pick. Even if you don't build into life regen at all, it's still working for you at least a little at a time. And honestly, it's perfectly fine for this to be the best relic in the game because it's arguably the hardest one to get. Takes up a huge chunk of your time and a little bit of luck on top of that. At the end of the day, items that actively work for you will always be the best picks, and Tranquil Heart does it the best. S tier. So now you know which relic is the best in Remnant 2. I have made a relic ranking video in the past and I will link that down below for you. If you're interested to see how much these have changed, it's worth checking out. Personally, I like to use the Shielded, Void, Profane, and Tranquil more than anything else. They work for you very easily and are arguably the 4 most versatile hearts in the game. Let me know down in the comments what relic is your favorite, and do remember, Remnant 2 is all about build crafting more than anything. If you can find a way to make any of these lower ranked relics work, then I'm all for it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.